Some comments up front. This is not actually me playing, as I have no way to film my screen without it looking awful, as I do not have the proper equipment. Now, the idea behind this video is to show off different postmodern aspects of the expansion downloadable content for Borderlands entitled The Zombie Island of Dr. Ned. This video will also show how the interactive medium of video games is well suited to postmodernism, possibly more so than any other medium. There will also be comparisons to the zombie novels Zone 1 and World War Z, basically illustrating the concerns in those and how they take on the more serious postmodern issues with zombies, and how the Zombie Island of Dr. Ned takes a more comedic look at zombies. Let's begin with a look at the very beginning of the game. First I will play the intro video and then it will be discussed.
It was a dark and stormy night. Sheesh. On a distant corner of Pandora, where few men dare to tread. With the journey to find the elusive vault behind them, our fearless adventurers set off into the trees of...
What's a tree?
Oh, for the angel's sake! It's a plant that grows out of the ground really tall.
Like this?
No more interruptions. So, they set out into the trees of Jacob's Cove, a land very much ravaged and forgotten by time. It was here that the scientist Dr. Ned, who is totally not Dr. Zed from the last story at all, tried to help all of mankind, but ultimately caused very bad shit.
That's a swear.
Dude made zombies, okay? You're not the police of me. Pay attention. Okay, so some bad crap was happening, and it got really spooky. And this is where our story begins.
Is any of this going to be true?
Yes, probably a lot of it. You're adopted.
As you can easily see, there's tons of self-reflexivity and scripting in the introduction. It begins with the standard trope of a dark and stormy night. It is following the scripted idea of the scary campfire story, but is constantly taken the piss out of by the young boy asking questions throughout the narrative, causing it to break up. It makes a self-reflexive joke of mentioning that Dr. Ned is obviously not Dr. Zed from the original Borderlands, although their only difference is the mustache placed outside of his mask. The postmodern idea of what is truth and what is not is even called into question in the opening, as the boy asks if any of the story is true, to which Marcus, the narrator, says yes, probably a lot of it. It is the idea of truth being subjective and made by people for their own purposes, as seen in different works throughout the course.
I'll get the lift down, but it'll probably take a bit to hand crank the bastard all the way to you. Probably want to shoot any of those skull munchers that trottle in.
The nature of the game is obviously not serious. Attacks from zombies does not turn you into one, and even if you die in the game, you are just revived at a new you station. The only consequence to death is a loss of money, which is incredibly postmodern, for as long as you have enough money, you can be cloned back to life and never truly die. The game has multiple self-reflexive moments in the narrative that points out the gameplay itself. At one point, your character has to wait for an elevator and gate to open so that they can get in contact with Dr. Ned, and Ned makes comments on how you must wait for him to get the elevator to you, and one comment is...
Oh, don't act like you've never had to wait on a hand-cranked elevator during a zombie outbreak before. Jeez.
That line refers to another video game, Half-Life 2, and points out the seemingly pointless ways to try and build tension in a game by having you fight off hordes of enemies, while the game still has you take part in that action of fighting off the hordes. TK from the original Borderlands is present in the game as a zombie. Not only is he a zombie, but he also gives quests which range from the name Brains to Brains, obviously referencing Return of the Living Dead, which was the film that introduced the idea of zombies hungry for brains rather than just human flesh. Where you give him an increasing amount of brains you shoot out of other zombies' heads. Not only do you gather the brains of other zombies for him to eat, but he references both Forrest Gump and Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers, all to make a joke and self-reflexively remind the audience, hey, this is just entertainment. The reward for giving TK brains, besides experience, as every quest gives, is that he ends up vomiting up items for you.
Boiled brains, boil them, mash them, stick them in a stew. Kosher brains, brain fondue, stir-fried brains, raw brains, brains on a stick. Now I'm pissed.
The game's end dabbles in postmodernism as well. The game ends with finding Dr. Ned, who you have to then defeat. He's easily beaten, and the game instantly cuts to the credits, entirely undermining the idea of the final boss fight that normally is actually difficult. Only then it undercuts that idea again by having a monstrous undead Ned tear through the credit screen, breaking the fourth wall by saying,
"It's not over yet."
There is then a standard boss battle. After defeating undead Ned, Marcus gives a final narration.
The Vault Hunters had stopped the evil Dr. Zed from...
I thought his name was Ned.
Yes, whatever you say. Where was I? Oh, yes. And so, Dr. Ned was stopped. Thanks to the courageous Vault Hunters. And me.
You? That doesn't make any sense.
What? You? Bedtime, you little... Good night, dirty little orphan.
The narration continues to have the child question the narrative with, "I thought his name was Dr. Ned," after Marcus calls him Zed, and then says how Marcus helping doesn't make any sense in the case of the narrative. At the end, Marcus says goodbye to the audience rather than the child, making it seem as though it was a horror B-movie presented by Elvira or some such. There are many different connections to be made between the zombie island of Dr. Ned, Zone 1, and World War Z, not just that they all have zombies. Dr. Ned and World War Z have some similar narrative conventions. World War Z presents the world through recordings and interviews establishing the entire history of the war with zombies. In Borderlands and Dr. Ned, there are echo recording devices which are sprinkled throughout the world, and they give details on different people and things that have happened. For example, one recording is from the character of Dirk Smallwood, who was hired to stop the zombie infestation. The echo recordings also brings a connection with Zone 1. Zone 1 has Mark Spitz imagine different zombies in their previous lives and who they may have been before the outbreak. One mission in the zombie island of Dr. Ned has echo recordings left behind by the character named Hank Rice, who talks to his family, for he had come to Jacob's Cove, where the game takes place, in order to work to raise money for his family and make a living. If you do the side mission before the main mission that involves him, you end up seeing what happened to Hank Rice. In the recordings, he says how skags, which are basically monster dogs, are the cure for zombieism according to Dr. Ned. In one of the main missions, you see Hank Rice still wearing the hat his family had sent for him, and that he has become a wereskag, who you then have to kill. Wereskag obviously being a take on werewolves, but as they do not have wolves in the Borderlands universe, they have skags. This is one of the few serious moments within the game, as you take pity on Rice since you know his past, only for him to have become a monster so he can't take care of his family. The seriousness is undercut when he comes out and the game exclaims, "Nice hat!" The novels and game all have a different view of the effects of zombies. Zone 1 is an incredibly bleak presentation of the world after the zombie outbreak, especially as the safe haven of Zone 1 falls at the end of the novel. Zone 1 looks more into how people are after such a traumatic event and how people grow to deal with it. World War Z has a more triumphant outlook in terms of humanity, as there is an actual victory over the zombies. Max Brooks uses zombies in World War Z to explore different social issues such as celebrity, as well as other issues affecting the human experience such as war. The zombie island of Dr. Ned is closer to World War Z than Zone 1, as there is actual victory over the zombies, but it is far more sarcastic and mocking than the world of World War Z. Zombies are used more to skewer pop culture in The Zombie Island of Dr. Ned than World War Z, although World War Z does this as well in the section where there's a television show of famous people held up in a shelter together that ends up being attacked by humans rather than zombies, making a commentary about reality show culture. An example of where The Zombie Island of Dr. Ned mocks popular culture is through the character of Harry, who is known through the echo recordings left behind. He has come to Jacob's Cove in the Misery Machine and has a friend named Skaggy Doo. He is a riff on Shaggy from Scooby-Doo, obviously, and even has the hippie look. He follows the script of a Scooby-Doo episode, and much like the failure of scripting in Zone 1, his scripting does not fit into the world of The Zombie Island of Dr. Ned.
You wouldn't believe what happened to me. The Misery Machine broke down. Like, I know that's not news, but I found this town and there's, like, no one there. I finally ran into an old doctor who said there was zombies throughout the haunted forest. He seems like a nice old man, so I thought I'd help him out. Who needs the rest of the gang, right? Okay, so, like, you know how that ghost always turns out to be some old guy with a mask on? I don't think these zombies are wearing masks. So, I've been doing what you and I do best, Skaggy. Hiding. Zoinks! I think I hear something. Like, I better sign off. Don't worry about me, old pal. They never think to look in a barrel, right?